came to New York to the UN library, I didn't really have much idea what I expected to find. It was just that this is where the search kept leading me. Everyone kept saying, well, there are a set of rules, and they're called the United Nations System of National Accounts. And if you want to read the full set, this is where you've got to come. So it was either going to be the end of the search or the beginning of a whole new one. The United Nations Statistical Commission has annual conferences. Each year, most countries will send their chief statistician or their retiring government statistician or whoever it is who wants this little trip off to the conference. And they will mostly work on documents that have been assembled by the professionals inside the Statistical Commission. It is certainly dominated by ideologues from the United States and works very, very closely with the World Bank and the IMF. And the difficulty is, of course, that hardly anybody from various governments' treasuries, those people who actually define macroeconomic policy, come anywhere near these conferences, have any idea what the new rules are, let alone have ever read them. When massive international rules are operating in a situation where no one who is implementing them is required to read them, then you know immediately you have a massive set of propaganda operative. But it was also so offensive, so chronically malevolent. And every day or two, I'd find yet another truly horrendous paragraph that meant I had to keep going. The worst day of all was when I discovered the paragraph, subsistence production and the consumption of their own produce by non-primary producers is of little or no importance. What this really means is that the work of non-primary producers, housewives, mothers, who are bearing and raising children, doing laundry, making home preserves, keeping a herb garden. In fact, most of the work that women do in an unpaid capacity, anywhere on the planet, macroeconomically, is of little or no importance. Well, after, I guess, about 2 months of reading through the System of National Accounts, you can start to believe you're slightly crazed or that you're not reading things properly, because the distortions between what is in the rules and what is real life that you observe is so extreme that I kept thinking I'm still missing something. And so again, I went to talk to John Kenneth Galbraith and said to me, look, for goodness sake, write it. Stop talking about this. You've know enough, you've read enough, just write it.
Well, I'm very proud of that. I have quite a few visits, so not all are strong in my memory, but I certainly remember her coming to see me. We had a long talk, I guess more than one, about the role of women in the economic system. The whole tendency in economics is to take the monetary economy, the pecuniary economy, not only as the basic thing to be measured. If there isn't money involved, if there isn't a price, you don't measure it. And that leaves women's work in the household and a great deal of child care and so forth out of the national accounts. It is enormously productive work, both for human enjoyment and for the welfare of the economy and the growth of the economy, that doesn't get counted. And it was this that Marilyn was concerned with, as indeed I would like to think I have been.
The system was developed by John Maynard Keynes and Richard Stone, based on a pamphlet they wrote called, literally, The British National Income and How to Pay for the War. And this became the basis of national income accounting. At the end of the war, like so many other things, if Britain had it and Germany didn't have it, it was credited with part of the reason why the United Kingdom had so-called won the war. Stone was then recruited by the new United Nations organization to take the rules that he'd had in Britain and to enlarge upon them for international consumption. Of course, he didn't really. He just translated what was a system that suited the British Empire into a neo-colonial exercise for the whole world. And so by 1953, that set of rules was imposed on every country, including all the newly emergent independent countries. It's called the United Nations System of National Accounts, and to a significant extent, it governs all our lives. All nations must conform to these rules of economic measurement, or they cannot belong to the United Nations. They cannot borrow from the World Bank or secure any loans from the International Monetary Fund. Important decisions are made with these figures, decisions which will determine whose needs are met first, decisions on how to spend your tax dollar, decisions on killing the planet, decisions on who will live or die. These measurements do not include everything. They are highly selective, though of course they maintain a pretense of objectivity. So what is included and excluded in this system? The system includes everything that goes through the marketplace. Everything which has a cash-generating capacity. In other words, the system recognizes no value other than money. Regardless of how that money is made. This means that there is no value to peace. This means that there is no value to the preservation of natural resources for future generations. This means there is no value to unpaid work, including the unpaid work of reproducing human life itself, including the unpaid work of women who feed and nurture their own families. This system cannot respond to values it refuses to recognize. This system leaves out the work of half the population of the planet and the planet itself. It is the cause of massive poverty, illness and death of millions of women and children, and it is encouraging environmental disaster. This is an economic system that can eventually kill us all.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this, the second Dubai International Aerospace Show. I think everybody has been staggered by the enormous success of the event this year, with comfortably over 400 companies exhibiting from all over the world, widespread of aircraft of every class, The Dubai show is now incontestably running in third place behind Paris and Farnborough.
The international trade in arms is the biggest growth industry of all.
Scout aircraft for acquiring targets at day or night. It worked in Desert Storm with...
The 5 permanent members of the Security Council are also the 5 leading arms exporters in the world.
Out beyond 10 kilometers. Yes, sir, at night. Yes, sir. And daytime? And daytime beyond 15 kilometers. Excellent mass-mounted sight.
Killing people, or preparing to kill them, is considered very valuable in the international economic system. Arms exports account for more than half the trade surplus of the developed economies. But the death, homelessness, injury, poverty and starvation caused by the use of these weapons is not even registered as a deficit.
Rocket system, essentially. Has that been tested in the Gulf War?
Yes, the Royal Air Force used it on Jaguar aircraft in the Gulf War.
Oh, yes.
Used it against anti-shipping targets, clustered artillery, dispersed artillery, and some work sites.
Yes, and it has proven
quite
effective.
Successful.
And mainly computer-oriented electronics.
To some degree, yes, but we're also doing and teaching a lot of hands-on hard training as well. We're involved in some of the more sophisticated, if you will, warfare type, electronic warfare type training as well. And it's something that can be audited or assessed, and at any time we know how we're proceeding with the client country or clients themselves.
The rewards are tremendous.
This aircraft is being rebuilt and modernized by the Canadian Air Force. We're the company that's doing that.
We depend on sales, essentially, on exports.
Indeed. It's absolutely essential.
Yeah.
If a country develops an economic system that is based on how to pay for the war, and if the amounts of fixed capital investment that are apparent are tied up in armaments, and if that country is a major exporter of arms and its industrial fabric is dependent on them, then it would be in that country's interests to ensure that it always had a market. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is clearly in the interests of the world's leading arms exporters to make sure that there is always a war going on somewhere.
The aerospace world is very competitive.
Yes, it is.
How do you rate Bristol Aerospace itself and Canada in terms of the competition now from our European allies, essentially?
I think we're as competitive as most, if not a little more competitive. We do run into problems. We have some competition, as an example, from the United States, where the government really gets in and pushes hard. And the support is very evident there.
It has clearly been in the interests of the United States to sustain war and political tension in the Persian Gulf region since the oil shock of 1974-1975.
Demonstrating the aircraft's complete capability of maneuvering at very high G and very high thrust. You'll see him demonstrating the full capability of fly-by-wire. He has got the stick hard over in one corner of the cockpit, the rudder hard over in the other, and the computer is essentially checking the aircraft in a steady spiral descent, not allowing it for 1 minute to get out of control. The great importance of this in any combat aircraft is that it frees the pilot's entire attention looking out of the window and at what he's supposed to be doing, which is attacking the enemy. The capability of the aircraft removes an enormous workload from the pilot. And that, as he comes out from that, pulling up now, easing back throttle, pulling up to circuit height, gear coming down, coming back in, landing to close.
Your Highness, in the long show we saw today, which was very spectacular, was there anything that caught your fancy that you would like to have?
Of course, sitting here, we're seeing many nice things. And I think this is called defense. And defense is make the peace last. And I think we need the support of all the nations and United Nations for this peace.
Every minute, 30 children die from want of food and inexpensive vaccines. And every minute, the world's military budget absorbs $1.3 million of the public treasury. This is war. The United States now devotes over $200 billion a year to military defense against foreign enemies. But 45% of Americans are afraid to go out alone at night within 1 mile of their homes. This is war. For every 100,000 people in the world, there are 556 soldiers, but only 85 doctors. This is war. For every soldier, the average world military expenditure is $22,000. For every school-aged child, the average public education expenditure is $380. This is war. The cost of a single new nuclear submarine equals the annual education budget of 23 developing countries with 160 million school-aged children. This is war. War is marketable. War pays, literally. War contributes to growth and development.